So, let's get the food and AgTech segment rolling. Again, my name is Wayne. Thanks for staying with us. And this is our last segment, over 6 segments for the 2-day APAC Summit. Thank you for staying with us. For those of you who are just joining us and just joining us online as well, the next hour or so, we will hear from a panel on food and AgTech, as well as you hear from Jade, our ventures associate, to share about some of the trends in the food and AgTech industry. And then we will have 5 startup pitches who are all pitching in person, and these are very, very exciting pitches. Again, housekeeping rules. Housekeeping matters, not rules. This is the QR code for the e-booklet for you to access if you don't have a physical copy. For those of you who are online, use this QR code to access our e-booklet, which has the details of all the startups, as well as the plug-and-play activities and the descriptions and information in there. All right. Last bit, right? If you are looking to connect with the startups, for those of you here in person, you should have a physical polling sheet. Once again, a reminder for you to fill up your name as well as your contact details, so that you can actually we can connect you with the startups after this. All right. For those of you online who are joining us, there will be a Zoom window that will pop up in the 30 seconds after each startup pitch, so that you can indicate whether you like to meet the startups. All right. And then, this is not the final segment for APAC Summit. We do have networking at Raffles Place after this for some of the pre-registered corporate and investor attendees. Also, for those of you who are interested to join us, please let us know, and please bring along your name tag. All right, are we ready to go? Yes. All right, okay, so to give you an overview of our food and AgTech activity in APAC, we have Pear, very apt name for the food program, Pear, who's our program manager for our food and AgTech, Plug and Play APAC, based in Bangkok. Can we give Pear a round of applause to invite her?
Thank you, Wayne. Woohoo! Welcome and good afternoon, and welcome to our last long-awaited Food and AgTech session of APAC Summit. My name is Pear Wanwisa Wongkasit, and I take the lead in producing the Food and AgTech Accelerator Program in Southeast Asia. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome our agri-food corporate partners, startups, and stakeholders in our network across Asia Pacific who are here with us today at the venue, and for those virtual attendees who are dialing in for the summit today. Before we start, I would like to provide what our program entails and why there is such a great value to join our plug-and-play food and AgTech innovation platform here in the Asia Pacific. The vertical was launched back in 2017 in the heart of Silicon Valley, and since then we have expanded to 10 locations around the world, where we have worked with our food and beverage corporate partners with more than 40 companies and more than 4,400 food and AgTech startups in our ecosystem. And ever since, we have accelerated more than 200 startups and invested in 22 startups to date. So, with more startups emerging in the scene, Plug and Play's open innovation platform can enable all stakeholders to drive the adoption of the food and AgTech innovation faster than before. So it is our mission to source and engage the most disruptive startups to the largest corporation that can offer sustainable solutions across the entire food value chain. And these are the emerging trends in the food and AgTech that we have worked on the innovation journey with our corporate partners so far. As you can see, it is across the entire agricultural food and food value chain, starting from the upstream AgTech on-farm smart farm management, all the way to downstream with the 3 goals in mind. The first is to streamline the supply chain optimization to bring in traceability. The second is to create a circular economy and thus more sustainable food and agriculture system. And lastly, to ensure an effective supply monitoring and prediction through data analytics and Internet of Things solutions. Our end goal is to facilitate the launch of proof of concept, pilots, or commercial agreements with our corporate partners and startups as we help them explore and curate and meet the world's best companies. But what is more important than pursuing these goals is the collaboration with our corporate partners and the industry stakeholders. We unite agri-food corporations, growers, food and beverage producers, and distribution companies, as well as the government sectors, to accelerate innovation across the entire food value chain from farm to table. Once again, we look forward to working more closely with you to grow our sustainable food and agriculture ecosystem in Southeast Asia. And if you are from a corporation that is interested in redefining your innovation strategies, please stay in touch with me or any of us from Plug and Play. Up next, we have our venture associate who will share more about insight on agri-food trends across the Asia Pacific. The floor is yours, Jade.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for sticking it out for today. I understand that it has been a very, very long day and we all get tired just a little bit after lunch, right? It happens to all the best of us. But anyways, I'm Jade. I'm on the ventures team at Plug and Play Thailand, where I help cover our innovation platform as well as our investments opportunity in Southeast Asia as well. And today I'll be talking a little bit more about the investments trend within Southeast Asia. And so the goal of my keynote, or it will turn out as a TED Talk later on, which you will see, is that I will help try to demystify investments within the food and AgTech vertical just a little bit, right? And so there are three things that I want to cover. The first thing that I want to talk about for this keynote is I'll be talking a little bit more about why food and AgTech is such an integral part of the cultural fabric within Southeast Asia. I'll be talking about some of the looming big picture headwinds that we're facing in terms of Asia Pacific. And lastly, I'll be zooming in just a little bit more in terms of what are some of the main investments focus that global VCs are currently investing in. So of course, I want to introduce to you all why agriculture is such a big part of Southeast Asia. And given that a lot of us were born and we live here, we understand that food is of course a part of every country, but in Southeast Asia, right, we're very, very snobby about our food. Just ask any Southeast Asian person about what is the best dish, for example. And there are statistics to tie in with that. Besides Singapore and Malaysia, which are anomalies for this, over 30% of the labor force of countries within Southeast Asia are employed within the agricultural sector. Thailand, for example, given that I was born and raised there and still do live there, although agriculture only contributes to 9% of the GDP, over 30% of people within the labor force are employed, right? And it goes to show as well that farmers are the ones that earn the least. Although they are the biggest part of our lives, they are actually within the poorest socioeconomic class, and that is why they need more government support, and that's why we're trying to change and trying to innovate this as well. And of course, we're very essential within the food supply chain, with Thailand and Vietnam contributing to around 35% of global rice exports. And here are some of the main agricultural headwinds that we face as a region and as people of the world, right? First is the self-sufficiency problem, and this is of course not strictly limited to Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific, in that a lot of countries can't feed itself, right? And so an example I want to bring up is Japan. Japan, when you think of Japan, of course, you think of the best food and agricultural products available on the market, which are very, very expensive, right? Those square watermelons, which cost $600 for some reason. However, they actually import in 60% of the calories that they consume. And so calories is how the Japanese government measures their food self-sufficiency. Second is the low yield, and this of course ties in with the smallholder farmer network within Southeast Asia. So in Asia Pacific and overall, most farmers are smallholder farmers under contract farming agreements with larger conglomerates, and so that's why their yield it is a lot less. And because there's no consolidation of farmland, these farmers do not have the required capital expenditure to really perpetually mechanize their farms to reach the yield level that is currently being reached in the U.S., in Latin America, and in Europe, for example. Rice, which is such an staple of Southeast Asia, the yield in Asia Pacific is actually 70% less than that of the US, for example. Lastly is the long supply chain, which within the past couple of months, I think has been the strains within the long supply chain is starting to grow, and then you're now slowly seeing an actual humanitarian crisis which is about to happen with the for example 50 million tons of grain shipment which is currently stuck in the port of Odessa, which is currently under Russian blockade, for example. And so now I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the food investments trend within. This is the global investment number. So you can see that from last year to this year, actually food and AgTech investments doubled to around $52 billion. And still, the largest segment is within downstream, right? And given that smallholder farmers are the poorest people within Southeast Asia, it's very hard to monetize if you have upstream solutions. So that's why all the money actually is poured downstream. And so you can see that close to 40% of the total investments made last year was into e-grocery. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about quick commerce. So quick commerce is by far the most popular investment category that we've seen the past year, and this has been exacerbated by lockdowns in Europe and in the US, for example. So there has been increased demand in more reliant and faster grocery delivery, right? Because earlier on, when you think about Instacart or when you think about Happy Fresh, for example, you have to book a slot, right? And of course, you want groceries now. I don't want to wait 9 p.m. in 4 days to get this pack of macaroni that I want to eat, right? And so companies were created to fill in that gap for the demand. And so GoPuff is by far the largest company, which raised around over $2 billion this year, with their largest investor being SoftBank. And they're currently trying to IPO with a $40 billion valuation, but of course, given current market conditions, we all know that that's not going to happen. And the other two companies, which are really good case studies, are two German-based companies, Gorillas and Flink Food. So these companies actually raised over $1 billion within the span of 1 year. And so actually, the second big macro trend, which is why these companies grew so big so quickly, was that ever since 2008, and with the onset of the financial crisis of 2008, central banks globally has been on a crusade against high interest rates, right? So 14 years of excessively loose monetary policy, including just never-ending quantitative easing, and this is what you get, right? Groceries that are able to be delivered to your doorstep within 15 minutes. And so this is actually quick commerce funding in Southeast Asia. We all know that when we look at investments trend, whatever's happening within the Western Hemisphere, be it the US or sometimes in Europe, in Asia, it slowly mirrors it, just slightly afterwards, although at a much lower pace. And so right now, Astro is the largest quick commerce company within Southeast Asia. So they raised $100 million within the span of around 6 to 8 months. And there's a lot of marquee investors on their cap table, such as Lightspeed, Axel, and Tiger Global. And in terms of what we think, in terms of what the investment team thinks about quick commerce, right, in terms of what we think about it in terms of our investment thesis, and that it is not the most amazing business model. Again, companies like these within this vertical has only existed because of extremely loose monetary policy, and when there is when governments really want to crack down on inflation, right? This is the type of companies that will go under first. And from a unit economic standpoint, it is not really the best business model. And so when you actually invest in companies, you don't really look at what they're doing right now. You think about what they can become in the end, right? So these companies, they put a lot of there are a lot of promotions, right, where there's no order minimums, there's no delivery fees, so that they can entice people to order a lot of these things. And then they will capture this larger user base in which they will further monetize down the line. But there's so many companies that are doing this, and as money gets more and more expensive, right, to really tackle rising inflation, they will not be able to have enough funds to reach that goal. And so the next trend update that I want to talk about, which has been a very popular category overall, is plant-based meat. So plant-based meat has been very, very popular, right, where all of it started with an initial hype with Beyond Meat, which IPO'd in late 2019, and at the maximum, the peak that we're trading at around $240 per share, they're valued at around $15 billion. And year to date, they are trading, their market cap is $1.5 billion. So they're down 90%. And if you actually look at the US sales data for plant-based meat, in 2020, year on year, it grew from 2019 on 46%. So if you look on a month-on-month growth basis, some month it peaked up 80%, right, 60%. And this was, and you can probably track this by, if you thought back a year or 2 years ago, you saw a lot of YouTube videos where people were blindfolded and they're taste testing Impossible Meat, Beyond Burger, and actual meat, right? And so that was what caused the initial hype. And although growth has been sustained, in terms of 2021, there's actually a decrease in terms of every single quarter. And the next thing that I want to talk about, which surprisingly I'm bullish about after this very hawkish stance on the other two verticals, is cell-based meat, in that there is actually still hope. And I don't want to talk too much about the problem with the cattle industry and the fact that they produce 15% of total greenhouse gas emissions, right? And so in hindsight, it's kind of funny to think that what's really killing us all is that cows are farting too much. And so, of course, the other thing, the advantage that cell-based meat has over plant-based meat is that it's more efficient in terms of the real estate usage, right? So, because a lot of plant-based meat are still based on legumes, right? Soy and peanut, for example. For cellular agriculture, you really don't need that. All you have to do later on is have these massive scale processing plants. And lastly, in that, why I think there is hope is that the road to price parity may be faster than we thought. If you think back to 2013, when Sergey Brin funded the first cell-based meat hamburger patty, which costed $330,000, and it still tasted probably horrible, which was what the judges actually said. And I actually insist you go back to watch that video. So that costed $330,000 for one hamburger patty. Right, but now with current technology, of course, it really varies in terms of how much it costs. But it could to produce 1 kilogram of beef or any other meat or seafood or shellfish, whatever it is, it can cost from around $500 to $3,000 per 1 kilogram. And so prices have gone down a lot. And I do believe that within maybe 5 to 10 years, we are on the road to price parity. And the next thing I'll talk about is aquaculture. Right, and so Asia Pacific produces up close to 90% of the totals of seafood supply. And we produce around overall global production is close to 200 million tons. And if you look at the consumption per capita, according to the FAO, back in 1961, consumption per capita stood at around 6 kilograms per person per year, but now it is 20 kilograms per person per year. And so the demand there's only a more demand every year, and so we have to make sure that our farming practices are up to date. And so around 35% of total seafood that is produced is wasted every single year. And the main challenges that we face is, of course, water quality, and disease prevention. And so now it is my turn to talk about the company that I invested in and which we'll be pitching later on as well. So I want to talk a little bit more about Tiara, which is a biotech platform that we invested in. So if you look at Indonesia or the other countries where shellfish farming is very, very prevalent, a lot of the companies that provide these solutions still are mainly based on IoT solution, right? So there's over 100 companies that can help monitor the water quality. But what we really, really don't have in Asia Pacific is an actual biotechnology platform that is trying to tackle this in a more sustainable way. And so what Tiara does is, and I just want to tell you a little bit more about how you prevent diseases for aquaculture, right? And so how do you prevent disease? It's vaccination, right? But imagine you having a shrimp farm and you have 80 million shrimps. Are you going to get every single one of those shrimps and you're going to vaccinate all of them? No, it doesn't work like that, right? And so what Tiara does is actually they can manufacture smart proteins, which will give these shrimps an immunity boost. And then with their proprietary encapsulation technique, which they then embed that within the aqua feed, the shrimps will no longer die of early mortality syndrome or white spot syndrome, which could wipe out an entire shrimp farm before every harvest at every quarter. And yeah, that is pretty much it for my keynote. I hope none of you have fallen asleep. I don't see any, so I'm very hopeful that I did not make you very, very sleepy. So again, of course, I have to sell plug and play, right? I am contractually obligated to really push plug and play. So we are in the middle of all this, and I honestly believe that with all the things that are happening around the world, with all of the looming macroeconomic headwinds and all of the food and AgTech headwinds that we face, it is not only within, it is not just our financial interest, but I think it is our mission as just people who are trying to survive and people who don't have enough money to fly to Mars to escape whatever is going to happen in 40 years. It is very, very important that we all come together and try to make the world a better place. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade, for providing us the more deep dive analysis on the agri-food innovations and investment trends, as well as partially selling plug and play. So moving to our next segment, it is my great pleasure to introduce a brief intro of our distinguished moderator of the featured panel, Agri-Food Thought Leaders to Follow, Emily Roos, an agricultural advisor from the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore, where she represents the Dutch interests in the area of agriculture, nature, food safety, and food security. Previously, she worked on assignments in waste management and organized high-level multi-stakeholder summits in agriculture, climate change, and the circular economy. Please welcome Emily Roos. Also, I would like to welcome on stage our respective panelists. First is Anton Wibobo, the CEO of Trendline Agri-Food Innovation Center. Next is Benjamin Pippin, Channel Director at Big Idea Ventures. And lastly, due to the technical issues, Sinyi Lee is still in the meeting, and she will be a little bit of delay to join our panel discussion. But yes, please go ahead, Emily, and introduce our two panelists on stage.
All right, thank you, Per. Thank you for the invite for speaking at this event. I'm delighted to be here and to moderate this panel on agri-food thought leaders to follow. Our goal today is that whatever your role is in the industry, you will come away with a fresh perspective or a new idea, something that you can apply to be more successful in technological adoption for sustainable farming systems and resilient food production. So for now, first let's take a few moments to get to know the panelists. I'll start with you, Anton. Can you please share a bit more about your background and about your current role?
Okay, thank you, Emily. And Plug and Play, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. My name is Anton Wibowo. I'm the CEO of Trendline's Agri-Food. I'm an Indonesian, but I'm based, live here in Singapore. So Trendlines, we are a VC that invests in tech companies in two sectors. One is in medical devices, and the other sector is in agri-food technologies. I'm the CEO of the entity in Singapore, and well, prior to Trendlines, I was in a startup that's also dealing with agricultural waste management, converting that to fertilizer and compost. So yeah, that's my background. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, my name is Ben Pippin. I'm the channel director for Big Idea Ventures based here in Singapore. Big thank you to Plug and Play for inviting me to this APAC Summit. It's great to see some folks like Jade for the first time. From, we've been talking for quite a while, so great to have you here in Singapore. Big Idea Ventures is a venture capital firm that invests solely in alternative proteins. We focus on 3 subcategories within that industry, which is plant-based, fermentation-based, and also cell-based. In addition to investing out of our $50 million USD fund called New Protein Fund Number 1, we also run accelerator programs in New York, Paris, and also here in Singapore. So generally, we're investing in seed and pre-seed stage companies, writing smaller ticket sizes, and investing in about 6 companies per location every 6 months. So we're looking at about 16 companies per year. We were founded in 2019 by Andrew D. Ive, who is based in the US, and we've made 70 plus investments across the alternative protein space, in addition to working very closely with our limited partners that are many of based in Europe and also here in Southeast Asia that work in the food industry, including Temasek here in Singapore, AAK, Meiji, Givaudan, and Buehler are some of our strategic limited partners. So we have very close relationships with them. And in addition to the accelerators and the early stage funding, we also do follow-on investments for many of our early stage investments once they come through the accelerator program as well. Very happy to be here.
All right, thank you, Benjamin. I think while we wait for Xinyi to join us on stage, we'll move on to the conversations. I'll kick off the conversation to draw out some of the high-level team of thought leadership in the agri-food industry. So the first question is, in your perspective, what does thought leadership look like in the agri-food sector? And I'd like to start with you, Anton.
Yeah, the way I look at it, I think for agri-food, at the moment, we still do not have like a centralized thought leadership or somebody that has cracked the code for the problem, right? It's especially when we are looking at Southeast Asia, when it is a very fragmented market, and I think Jade touched on the fact that majority of the producers, the farmers here are smallholder farmers, and because of that, I don't think that we have centralized thought leadership. But the way I perceive it is that when we look at thought leadership of someone that we want to follow, it is often tied to the expertise of that country, right? So I mean, in Southeast Asia, when we think of, let's say, a tropical fruit manufacturers or producers, then we look at Thailand. What has Thailand done? The Kasikorn University, for example. And then when we look at aquaculture, we refer to the leaders in Indonesia, in Vietnam. So I guess it's very topical and very localized market in respect to that. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Right, thank you for sharing. And Benjamin, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Anton is actually a thought leader in our industry, as is he has actually helped tremendously to bring together the industry over the last couple of years. I believe our WhatsApp group has 200 members at this point, which is pretty great, and lots of meetups that have been happening recently. So Anton does one of those amazing jobs of bringing everybody together to really work as a team, regardless of what segment of the industry that we're in. But I guess more on a macro side, you know, being based here in Singapore, I think that a lot of thought leadership comes from government entities. Singapore really leads the way, I think, in this region and then also globally. If you think about the 30 by 30 initiative has really been kind of a guiding light for a lot of us working in the industry, whether it be in cell-based or in plant-based, fermentation-based, and also in agriculture as well, because as many of us know, Singapore, it's becoming a sort of a national security issue to be able to feed the population of 6 to 7 million on this wonderful island. So a lot of these governments that are recognizing that are becoming thought leaders themselves by creating programs and also incentivizing industry to come and set up here in Singapore. So with Singapore sort of being the roadmap for many countries that are looking to understand how to innovate within the food space and also create value for companies to come into their locations, I think that thought leadership has really got to start at the government level, and creating programs like 30 by 30 initiative has been integral to the success of the food startups and also the food industry here in Singapore.
All right, thank you for sharing. I think we'll move on to the next question. So what are the emerging segments of food and AgTech that are showing promise? You may share the success stories that we've seen and what we can learn from these. So Benjamin, would you like to share with the audience?
Sure. I think from our point of view, we're really excited about precision fermentation and what fermentation can do in the food industry. As Jade touched on, with some of these larger incumbents, whether it be Impossible or Beyond, that are potentially struggling with their stock prices and their valuations and potential consumer adoption, there's some technologies that we'll be looking to in the next 3 to 5 years that we really believe is going to be a game changer globally. Precision fermentation unlocks an entire world of food science. For example, one company that we've invested in is called Meli Bio, who's actually creating honey without bees. So there's a lot to talk about there, but that's just one sort of example of something that can benefit the planet as a whole in terms of the future of basically our food systems and also agriculture as well. But we've also invested in companies that are creating proteins across the board. Companies like the Every Company, which is just recently funded and is creating egg white proteins for a multiple number of applications. So for us, fermentation across the board is really something that we'll be looking at. Everything from precision fermentation all the way to biomass fermentation, which also unlocks a whole world of food applications and beyond in industry. So yeah, that's basically my thought on the macro trend there.
Right, thank you for sharing. Anton?
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish about digital agriculture as a whole, actually. I mean, it's a broad category, but I mean, if you ask me, is there any success story that we have seen here in Southeast Asia or Asia? To be honest, I mean, for startups, we haven't really seen, I mean, big exit or companies that go into unicorn when it comes to AgTech. And however, I would consider it a success because now if we look at governments of different countries, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, in the last 2 years at least, each of them has come up with a digitalization of agriculture roadmap. And they have launched, for example, in the Philippines, they have this National Center for Precision Ag and Digital Technology. So I think the market or the stakeholders begin to understand the power of adopting technology in the industry, and because of that, I'm seeing that startups or companies that have developed relevant practical solution and technologies for the farmers to digitalize their process or even their farming practices will start to reap the benefit in the next 2 to 3 years. So I think that's one that I'm excited about. And another, I mean, the exciting technology that we see, of course, in novel production system, right? And the mindset has changed now that food production doesn't have to just happen in the farm somewhere in the rural areas, but even the urban environment can be converted into food manufacturing facility, whether it's indoor farms, whether it's cultivated proteins or ingredients. So I think that's what will change the landscape in the next 2-3 years. Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. I think we will be joined now by Xin Yi. Please join us on stage. Yeah, give her a warm applause. Xin Yi is the Executive Director of Sustainability and Agricultural Impact at Pinduoduo. Could you give a brief introduction of your background and your current role?
Sure, and sorry for joining late. I was just in another meeting. So thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this summit. It's good to be connected with all of you in person and virtually. I'm Cindy Lim. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainability and Agricultural Impact at Pinduoduo. We are China's leading agricultural e-commerce platform. So we were founded in 2015, and today we're connecting over 800 million consumers on one end with over 16 million farmers on the other. So we sell other categories of products as well, but agriculture is kind of where we started out in, and it's still a very big part of the Pinduoduo story today. So it accounts for about 16% of the total GMV or transaction volume on the platform. So in 2020, that was about $42 billion worth of agricultural products that were sold. So as a technology company, we're a company where 2/3 of our staff are engineers. We're constantly thinking about ways in which we can also make the food system more efficient. So we're very interested in agri-tech solutions, food tech solutions that can also help improve, I think, the quality as well as the access to food for our consumer base.
All right, thank you. And I have 2 questions for you straight away. Sorry for that. In your perspective, what does thought leadership look like in the agri-food sector?
Sure. So I think jumping straight into it, for us, coming as a non-traditional player in the food sector, we're not, a CPG, or we're not like a farming product company. I think, thinking out of the box is something that is very inherent in our approach. So always thinking about, actually when we look at the whole value chain, what are some of the things that are missing? So I think that also prompts us to take a somewhat different approach. So as opposed to having a straight up, fixed kind of CVC structure where we say we specifically want to invest in, these following technologies, this is our AUM, we're actually looking at it in a much more flexible way. So across different time horizons, we may be pursuing research projects, for instance. So we have 2 research projects with A-Star in Singapore, for instance, on food safety as well as plant-based proteins. And then we also have research projects on plant science. At the same time, we're also thinking about, what perhaps is missing in the ecosystem. So as opposed to sort of, seeing the trend and just trying to be part of it, we're also thinking a bit about, well, what else is missing in the conversation? Or what is, something that is needed to accelerate adoption of innovation? So to that end, on agri-tech in China, we noticed that actually China predominantly has smallholder farmers. So for smallholder farmers, the solutions that they're looking at, the risk appetite that they have, the ability to invest, it's very different from if you're looking at a solution coming from the West, right, where the scale of farming, the way that it's operated is just fundamentally different. So to that end, that was also why we felt, okay, maybe we need to create a situation where farmers are able to see for themselves the benefits that technologies can bring them in a very de-risked and objective kind of way. So with that, we created our Smart Agriculture competition, which was a way for technologists or tech-savvy youths to demonstrate to farmers, hey, this is what technology can do today, right, in an experimental setting. So think about if we were to bring it into a farm, right, at scale. And I think that was really encouraging when we saw, outside of the competition, those conversations did happen, right? So some of the farmers directly reached out to the technologists and said, hey, can you bring your strawberry growing algorithm to my farm? And we could literally see that sort of acceleration in terms of the development process, because now those teams are working with over 100 households. So it's a launch pad for something bigger and something that we hope across the industry, more and more farmers might feel more incentivized to explore outside of their safety zone.
Right, thank you. And we just talked about the emerging segments of food and AgTech that are showing promise. Can you share some success stories that you've seen and something that you've learned from that?
Yeah, so I think the emerging areas that we're particularly keen on are things that would work very well for smallholder farmers. I think it has come to that point where there are some mature solutions already that could be adapted, and I think at the same time, what we've seen happen in the mobile internet in countries like in China, but also in emerging parts of Southeast Asia, where you have also a young, very mobile savvy population. It's a very ripe sort of grounds for some innovation around that end, right? So are there ways in which we could de-risk or maybe make adoption something that is easier, something that is more intuitive to understand? Are there ways in which we can communicate information or predictions on the farming to the farmer in a more engaging way as well? So not just one format, but perhaps having video, having a chat function, etc. So I think a lot of that is evolving quite quickly. And like I mentioned, I think for the Smart Agriculture competition, that's one instance where we were also pleasantly surprised by how there were people who didn't have a background in agriculture who joined the competition and were able to sort of translate the technological skills that they had into something that was very tangible, and that led to more ideas, right? So thinking then about, well, what else can technology do? Can it potentially improve the nutritional quality of what it is that we consume? So I think we're just at the early innings of unlocking all of that potential.
All right, thank you. So global food systems are facing immense challenges, environmental challenges to climate change and biodiversity decline, as well as market disruptions, for example, by the pandemic and the Ukraine war. So what are the changes that need to be made for a more resilient and sustainable food system? Anton, can I start with you?
Sure. I look at the food system in three broad categories, right? The production system, the distribution system, and then the consumption. And I do think that there is already quite a significant amount of money goes into the consumption, diversification of products, healthier products, and then in the distribution, the supply chain players. But what is disproportionate, in my opinion, is that when we look at the production system, the key stakeholders in this case are the farmers, right? But yet, we haven't seen enough where there's solution technologies that are targeted to this group of smallholder farmers. So Xingyi also mentioned that in China, largely the farmers are smallholder farmers. I think if you include India into that picture, it's the same case. And I believe we need to change the mindset when we look at the smallholder farmers. It's no longer from the point of view of, okay, let's do something nice or kind and help them, right? But we need to look at them as they are the entrepreneurs, they are the producers. So the way that we can support them, it should be in the same way where we bring whether innovations or whether we bring business to factory owners or to manufacturers, right? So one point is equal access to capital, which most of the smallholder farmers would not have at the moment. And at the same time, I see that across these three different systems, there's one common thread, and that is technology. We can use technology to solve this problem. So I think that's in that way we can help to make the food system more resilient. And if you add in the component of climate change or environmental impact, for the smallholder farmers, they are both the victims of that. And at the same time, because they don't have the right support, they will become the perpetrator of that, right? They will keep having farming practices that are not sustainable. You can't change that. Just rice industry as an example. Jade mentioned that cattle is the largest emitter of methane in the agricultural sector, but rice farming is the second largest one. So yet we are not able to do much at the moment on how to change the behavior of the farmers, not to flood the farm at certain time. However, if we are able then to bring the same model that Sing you mentioned in China, for example, bringing them access to maybe farming advisory app, or even a simple tool that give them SMSs or Telegram bot that says, okay, you need to follow this instruction at this particular time. I think that may seem very little impact, but if you add them all together, that can change or rather make the food system more resilient. Yeah. So we need more ping toto in different countries. Yeah.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Yeah, absolutely. For Big Idea Ventures, we focus on companies that are a bit more downstream and not as closely tied to the commodities and the agricultural side. But for us, a really exciting development has been sort of localization of manufacturing and production. If we are looking at larger companies that are based in California, like Beyond Meat, that is sourcing ingredients from all over the world, doing production in California or wherever, and then shipping here to Southeast Asia, one of the big missions and one of the reasons why we set up in this part of the world was to localize companies and also production. So we want to invest in companies that are in Southeast Asia, create products that consumers love, and then sell those products directly back to the region. As you can understand with supply chains right now and this disruption there, there's a lot of interest in localization. And not to plug Tyndall, which is a company here in Singapore, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Not a BIV portfolio company, by the way. Their model is really attractive because, and they've obviously gotten a lot of investment dollars from their startup stage to where they are now, and if you even look around, they're expanding very rapidly, is because they have extremely asset-light manufacturing, meaning that they can set up in any part of the world and be producing product within 2 to 3 weeks as long as their base ingredients are readily available. So those types of manufacturing efforts in terms of localization, I think is going to be essential to Southeast Asia because there are so many great raw ingredients here like duckweed in Thailand, for example, or lupins and pulses in Australia. The commodities are here, we just need to figure out ways to commercialize them locally.
Thank you. Shinyi?
Yeah, I think some of the points Anton and Benjamin have talked about. So I think one part is the way that we distribute food or the way that it moves through our food system continues to evolve. I think COVID was already kind of a big trigger for that. And I think in light of the global supply chain disruptions, we are seeing people also being a bit more active in trying to diversify the sourcing. But even on a country level, right? Because when you have lockdowns or you have disruptions, you're directly impacting the lives of millions of people. So to the extent that if there are different ways for farmers to get access to a market, for the products to reach the consumer, I think that helps to constitute a more resilient food system. And I think on sort of a regular basis, right, barring aside disruptions, letting farmers have that sort of price transparency or the information about what is it that consumers want, right, so that you're also able to produce in a much more efficient manner. So thinking again about the longer term footprint of our food production system, there is a good chunk of it that's actually going uneaten, right, or wasted. Part of that is post-harvest management, but part of it is also a supply-demand mismatch. So perhaps it took too long in the supply chain. By the time it reached the consumer, it already went bad. Or it could just be a matter of there's this product that's being sold, but not enough people are wanting to consume it, or not enough people know about it. So I think again, through e-commerce, we are able to transmit such information more rapidly. So hopefully, over time, as we see more consumers adapt their shopping behavior, there's also more of that optimization that can happen, right? So farmers get better information, farmers produce more efficiently, and at the same time, on the logistics side, that's a knock-on effect, right? Because now that they know what people want to consume and roughly where it needs to to go to and where it came from, how do we as a platform potentially work with these logistics partners so that the products don't need to go to like 3 stops before they reach the consumer, right? It can actually travel a much shorter distance and get there, in a fresher and better state. So, reducing, I think that 30+% of food produced that is lost or wasted is important, is a part of the story. And I think, another big picture point looking towards the future of the food system is also involving youths, right? Or ensuring that, more stakeholders are brought to the table, like farming or the food system is not just the preserve of, government or policymakers or farmers, right? It's something that touches all of us. And actually, in terms of looking for innovations, we also have to be a bit more open-minded, right? So how do we bring research out from the academic institutions to the field? How do we, inspire or trigger some interest from other sectors that can have implications on how the food system functions? I think that's a longer-term initiative that we all collectively have to work on.
Can I just add one point?
Yes,
I think,
please.
Well, this is an idealistic thinking, but I think that at least for Southeast Asia, if one day we can have a real borderless, between the Southeast Asian countries of transfer of food, I think as a region that will make the region really more food resilient, right? But of course, I mean, this you require enough political will to make that happen. But I mean, if you learn from Europe or even China as a big country, I think Southeast Asia has that potential as a region to become I don't know what you call it, food hub or even food region in itself, and it can be self-sufficient. Yeah.
Thank you, Anton, for sharing. I think we can. It's very interesting all the remarks made, and I think we can talk for hours. But we have 3 more minutes left for the last question. So I'm going to ask this to Anton and Xinyi. Over the last 5 years, the volume of VC investments into agri-food tech has grown exponentially. How can we attract more international VC investment into APAC, into the APAC agri-food sector? Xinyi, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think at the end of the day, the size of the Asia-Pacific market is something that is very tangible to everyone. We've had numerous conversations with startups who are keen to enter the Chinese market in particular. So I think for international VCs to come into Asia Pacific, I think a lot of them are getting increasingly aware of the size of the market and the potential. But I think perhaps it's a comfort level, right, of actually understanding the consumer needs, or in the case of AgriTech, what the farmer needs, right? Finding a right tailored solution that is actually suitable, and having that, I guess that having a partner or having someone who can also share those insights on the ground with them. I think that would also help give them the confidence. And I think increasingly, though, it is also potentially encouraging to the international crowd to see more and more sort of Asian investors, Asian VCs, right? So we've got 2 of them based here on the stage. And I think, to the extent that these local investors with the local know-how are demonstrating meaningful success, I think that is also a good sort of neon signboard, like attracting international VC flows. So as a company that is operating in a very large market, we're certainly keeping our eyes on consumer demand and how that is shifting. And I think we're also keen to also work with international partners to share some of those insights into kind of what is happening on the ground, so that we can accelerate the bringing in of solutions that would really help improve productivity for the farmers and improve the overall security of the food system.
Thank you, Anton.
Well, in my opinion, now is a difficult time to attract international money into VCs or international VC to this region. Well, I think we are going through a time of correction, but that is not necessarily bad for the ag and food sector. In fact, I would say that in order to attract them, there's nothing new that we need to do. Instead of just doing or rather for the portfolio companies, for the startups in this space to continue to survive and then thrive, and to prove that this is a sector that in itself is resilient and it's not cyclical, right? So ag and food is not as cyclical as other tech sector, and well, when we tide through that difficult period, I think then the international money will begin to see, oh, okay, this is first is a market that is worth investing in, and also is a sector worth looking at and putting more money in. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much to all of the panelists for joining me on stage and sharing their insight and experience. I hope today's session triggers all stakeholders' interest to form a collaborative partnership with the emphasis on transparency and consistency to speed up the technological adoption and transform the operation of growers. I would like to pass the mic back to Per to continue the rest of our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Now it is time for our anticipated startup pitches. So today we have our pick of the most exciting innovators who are revolutionizing the food and agri-tech industry. So if you would like to connect to any of the startups, so we will have like a polling sheet in your hands. So right after we finish the pitches, you can drop the polling sheet in front of the registration table when you leave this room. And for online attendees, a polling pop-ups will appear on your Zoom screen right after each pitch ends. So bringing up our very first portfolio startup, Mayani. Mayani is the Philippines' fastest growing farm-to-table platform, empowering smallholder and farmers by providing them a broad and efficient market access through agri-e-commerce and proprietary agri-value chain technology. Please welcome JT, co-founder and CEO of Mayani.
Thanks a lot, Per. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for staying over. My name is JT Solis. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mayani, and we're here to empower smallholder farmers through a digital agri-fisheries value chain. In the context of the Philippines, the country's agriculture and agri-fishery sector is in a very bad and dismal shape. Number one, a lot of our farmers are very fragmented. Number two, we have lots of middlemen. And number three, there's a huge data deficit that exists in that sector. As a consequence, that has created and perpetuated the following realities. One, limited market access for our 10 million smallholder farmers. We have very high food loss, and we have very volatile prices on the part of market demand. What we're doing is we're building this AgTech platform that can fully unlock the $10 billion Philippine agricultural output value. We're doing this by consolidating production at scale, optimizing that agricultural value chain, and digitizing it end-to-end. In early 2020, we even got funding from the Asian Development Bank to build this proprietary DigiStack that could help us gain visibility and even forecasts based on actual agricultural output data and better enable our value chain to have that efficient market access. In a lot of ways, we did create that tech revolution and disrupted the agri-value chain for the better. From what literally started from a small apartment garage, we started moving literally metric tons of fresh produce coming from different provinces of the Philippines, even engaging the government, other stakeholders, farmers, and fisher folks on the ground. Right now, we're ahead of the curve in the Philippine agri-tech space. We currently work with over 72,000 smallholder farmers spread across different regions in the country. We now power some of the biggest fresh produce supply chains in the country, the likes of Shell, retail giant Walter Mart, City of Dreams, even huge multi-format retailers like Robinson's Group. We have solidly built an ecosystem of partners that have been supporting not just our mission, but our advocacy of supporting these smallholder farmers, growers, and producers. Some of our supermarket partners you could see in our screen. We have also reshaped how agri-food arrive at people's table, and even expanded to help out farmers involved in cut flower farming, a huge and thriving industry in the Philippines. What keeps us up at night and really what fuels a lot of the things we do has always been the social impact we're driving as a byproduct of our commercial traction. 50% rise in farmers' income, and a huge fraction of our farmers are actually women, which speaks of our contribution to the agricultural she economy. In a country that is rather waste-heavy, we have also reduced food loss by at least 20%, a certain issue that is very, very relevant right now. Our unfair advantage are anchored on three things. One, our entrenched partnership with the Philippine government. I'm going to touch on that later on. Number two, our massive 72,000 strong farmers network. And third, our scalable end-to-end digital value chain play. Recently, Google, Temasek, and Bain & Company released this seminal report stating that the Philippines now is the fastest growing internet economy in Southeast Asia. We're riding on the back of this, thinking that perhaps this is a headwind that would allow us to better the sector and perpetrate a lot of positive things. In our fight for relevance, we have even forged this partnership with the Philippine Department of Trade and Industry to become that conduit, providing that continuity of the agri-supply chain amidst the ongoing lockdown in the country. We have also been mindful of our community by doing a lot of social procurement initiatives, the likes of Shell, the likes of Save the Children in the country. But because visions are meant to be limitless, we have expanded from a 7,000 island archipelago to perhaps one of the largest archipelagos in Southeast Asia, Indonesia. We have started our market testing there in that archipelago. This is the team with over 125 years of experience in e-com, agri-trading, and supply chain. We are also strategically guided by a global board of advisors, the likes of Jojo, even our former Agriculture Secretary, Cito Lorenzo himself. Right now, we have built a solid 7-country coalition of backers and investors with a huge focus on impact, the likes of ADB, the likes of Ag Funder, Plug and Play, even the cacao-backed ventures from South Korea. So if you want to help redefine and reshape the future of agri-fisheries in this part of the region, more than happy to chat.
Thank you, JT. So to learn more about Mayani, don't forget to reach out to him before he goes back to his homeland in the Philippines. And for online attendees, you can indicate your interest if you would like to be connected with Mariani online on the polling on the polling window that pops up on your Zoom screen now. Our second startup is another startup in another portfolio startup in the agri-food space, which provides disease management in plants and animals, as well as alternate food productions using synthetic biology, precision fermentation for natural and material science for effective delivery to make food production healthy and sustainable. Let's now hear it from Rishita, founder and CEO of Tiora.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please let me know if you intend to or have eaten food today. Most of you have. And that is exactly what we are here to talk about. Like, food production has not really changed in many decades. And yet, we need to be able to feed 10 billion people. So the two main things that we are looking at in food production to solve is disease management and enhanced growth. The very first markets that we are targeting is aquaculture. Being in Southeast Asia, as Jade mentioned, 90% of the aquaculture and shrimp production of the world comes from Southeast Asia. This is the most sustainable protein, least wasteful animal protein, and the fastest growing sector in all of food production. This yet is ridden by diseases. The way fishes are vaccinated to prevent diseases is similar to what we did during COVID. Every single fish is removed from the water, anesthetized, injected and vaccinated, and allowed to recover and put back. This is extremely stressful for the animals, of course, and this is extremely expensive to the farmers. That's the reason only very large farmers in the world can afford these, and most of the farmers have little to no access to disease management. As a result, billions of dollars, like close to $50 billion, are lost in aquaculture annually. If we go and look at small animals such as shrimp, there are absolutely no solutions for disease management in the industry today. This is a $36 billion global industry, which faces annual losses of $6 billion, and solutions are awaited. That's where we come in, and we combine synthetic biology with effective delivery. So we use bioinformatics, synthetic biology, where we design these biologics in microorganisms such as yeast, and then produce them using a precision fermentation, and deliver them using encapsulation-based technology. With our biologics, what we have seen is that in controls, when 98% of the animals are dead, with Theora biologics, 83% survive. This is what makes the farm go from being loss-making to profit-making for a fraction of the cost. We have very effective methods to bring this to market. We are targeting two main countries, India and Indonesia, which produce 26% of the world's shrimp. Currently, we have customers in both the countries that are distributors and have huge market penetration. And these distributors, with them, we are doing commercial trials. Our first product, Shrimp Guard, is in animal trial phase and will see full commercial launch next year. We also have requests from fish farmers, where we are doing tech development to bring booster shots which can be orally delivered to the fish. We don't stop at shrimp. This technology is applicable to animals, and beyond animals, it is applicable to plants, and beyond aquaculture, it is applicable to plants and larger animals. We have a fantastic team to deliver this, with expertise in both science and manufacturing and scaling our operations. We have a fantastic board of advisors and a host of fantastic supporters to grow this baby into a very successful company. With that, we invite you to make sustainability profitable. We are looking for early access to our platform through partnerships or investment opportunities, and please talk to us after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rishita. Don't forget to get in touch with her if you want to find out more about Theora and how you can be part of their journey to revolutionize the agri-food industry. For our online audience, you can indicate your interest to connect with her on a polling window that pops up on your Zoom screen now. Next up on our list is a food tech portfolio startup called Umami Meats. They are developing cultivated seafood with a focus on species that will experience supply-side shortages in coming years due to the climate change, overfishing, and growing consumer demand. Let's give it up for Mihir, founder and CEO of Umami Meats.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Mihir Prashad. I'm founder and CEO of Umami Meats, and I want to tell you how we're enabling sustainable seafood that's cultivated, not caught. The future we're building is a world in which we can sustainably feed humanity while rewilding half our planet. Imagine a world before industrialization where everyone can still have the food that they eat today. We do this by crafting seafood that's cultivated, not caught. And the reason that we work on cultivated seafood is that the vast majority of consumers are not going vegetarian or vegan. Despite trends that we see, especially coming out of the US and Europe, the mass middle is consumers who are moving into the middle class, able to eat animal protein multiple times per day for the first time, and not looking to make a change today or tomorrow. And so we're building cultivated protein to fill the gap. The promise of cultivated seafood is a healthier, safer, and more secure food system. It enables food security and food sovereignty while decreasing carbon emissions protecting and restoring the biodiversity of our oceans and all of the surrounding ecosystems on the coasts, and helping to alleviate ocean pollution. Our process is fairly straightforward. We start by harvesting a small sample of cells from a fish, establish cell lines that are stem cells that can turn into both muscle and fat. We then put these into bioreactors to turn a couple of million cells into tens of trillions of cells, and harvest them and form them into seafood products. And what we're doing is actually building the intel inside, the technical layer that enables the industry to move to sustainable seafood production as rapidly as possible. This starts in what we call our cell foundry in the lab, where we culture cells with novel plant-based extracts and use high throughput and automation to test as many different conditions as possible. But the real secret sauce happens in parallel in the cloud. We use in silico optimization, which is basically machine learning plus what are known as digital twin computational models, to enable us to become much more efficient at what we test in the lab. The result is that we can dramatically drive costs down much faster than anticipated, as was discussed earlier in the panel. Our goal is to be at price parity out of a pilot plant for high premium species, and to be at price parity or below the market price today for the majority of seafood within 5 years. The species that we're focusing on today are those that we can't easily farm, either because economically or biologically it's very difficult. We're focusing even more so on those that are already on the red list of the IUCN. So these are species that are endangered or threatened. And then we look at those that are facing strong consumer demand. Of those, we've chosen eel, tuna, and red snapper to start, but we have broader ambitions to do this for all of the dozens of species that we're driving to extinction with our consumption. We're going to start with our first demo quite soon on a fishball and actually on a laksa kind of dish, but our goal to market is really focused on structured products. Things like grilled and smoked unagi, fish chunks for the soups and noodles dishes that are so common, and eventually moving into the high-end premium markets in sashimi and steaks and fillets. Our business model is quite different from what you'll mostly see in the industry. We want to be a B2B provider. We want to be the technology provider who can license or joint venture with large companies to move the industry from an extractive one to a regenerative one that enables us to produce seafood to put on people's plates while keeping fish in the ocean. So far, we've been able to establish multiple cell lines. We actually have 5 endangered species cell lines in our labs today. We've been able to grow those cells free from animal inputs, and we're now starting to scale that up. We've now been able to bring that to a 1-liter production system and are moving toward first prototypes. And you'll see several prototypes from us this year, publicly launched. We have a team with deep technical expertise, with decades of experience in things like media development, turning stem cells into muscle, and in producing highly automated systems to enable rapid scale. We have a novel differentiated platform for producing cultivated seafood, and if you're interested in partnering with us to help make this the new reality for seafood production, please contact me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mihir. Don't miss out the opportunity to connect with him here after this session. And again, please be reminded for virtual attendees, you can indicate your interest on the polling that pops up on your Zoom screen now. All right, our second to last startup is revolving around sustainability. AgTech. They use food waste to create a new material to replace plastic package. Their vision is to throw out the thrown away mentality with circular solutions where nothing goes to waste. With that, let's welcome Karen, founder and CEO of AgTech.
Hi, thank you. There's nothing quite like talking about food waste before you go for dinner, right? So I'm Karen, and we are using food waste to create a new material to replace plastic food containers, but the food waste we use is called brewer's spent grains, BSG. It's made up of malt and cereals, and it's disposed when you drink Milo, Ovaltine, or beer, so drink lots of beer. Raw BSG is moist and spoils easily, and actually BSG is currently being used as animal feed and compost. Our proprietary technology allows us to process the BSG and convert it into bioresins and bioproducts. So this is our manufacturing process of how we create our bioresins using the brewer's spent grains. And these biopellets that we create will then be able to go into existing manufacturing machines to be formed and molded into products. The functionalities of the material we create will be that very much like what you would expect from plastic packaging, minus the detrimental environmental impact. The growth of the market is tremendous because currently global production of bioplastics is less than 1% of fossil-based resins. And Asia is spurring this demand because of, fortunately, government legislation that is against the use of single-use plastics, as well as increasing consumer consciousness. Ironically, COVID-19 has been a huge booster for us because of the demand for single-use containers due to food and hygiene reasons. The competitive landscape is fragmented. What sets AltaPacs apart from the competition is the scalability and immediacy of our solution. We use locally sourced food waste to go into existing manufacturing machines that we can produce the products at scale. What we do at AltaPacs is we produce the bioresins, we sell them. We also create products using brewer spent grains and starting with food containers. We start in Singapore, and we are working with plastic manufacturers who are looking for eco-friendly alternatives to be produced at scale. These same plastic manufacturers come with the advantage of having a client commercial base that we can leverage on. And these are our 7 key markets. Our traction would be over $1 billion US. We expect to be profitable by the 3rd year. This is the AltaPacs Eco Containers that have received both Singapore Food Agency as well as Food and Drug Administration certification. And as you can see from the AltaPacs containers, they are not fragile, they are lightweight, they can hold oily and watery foods and can be microwaved. The AltaPacs biopallets can go into existing polypropylene manufacturing machines to create both thin-walled as well as thick-walled food containers. Our proprietary technology allows us to also switch out our raw materials, and we're currently working on using discarded coconut shells to create biopallets that can go into existing manufacturing machines. We've won the End Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge in Indonesia, working with the United Nations Development Programme. And we've also started a pilot with Grab, having won the Sustainability Open Innovation Challenge. We've received funding from both Temasek Foundation, of course, bootstrapped our production. And with regards to our funding ask, the investors can work with us on that. We're starting our commercial production together with our pilot clients and are now working on getting international certification for biodegradability and home compostability. The AltaPacs team has over 20 years of experience in marketing, finance, and manufacturing, as well as an R&D team that has expertise in food waste and material science. So please connect with us if you're interested. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Don't forget to reach out to her if you want to take part in AltaPac's mission. And again, for online attendees, you can indicate your interest in the polling that pops up on your screen if you wish to be connected with her online. Lastly, we'll be exploring food freshness technology. We have Eden AgTech. Eden creates formulas from natural ingredients to preserve food freshness using chemical-free edible coating solutions to prolong fruit and vegetables shelf life. Joining us from Thailand, Norapat, CEO of Eden AgTech. Please take it away.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Job Norapat, CEO and co-founder of Eden AgTech, a food tech startup company. And our mission is to prolong the shelf life of fruit and vegetable. By this chemical-free edible coating solution. So our company concept is inspired from the concept of Garden of Eden, which every living animal and fruit and vegetable in that place are immortal, are timeless. So we want to create the natural solution that can make the fruit and vegetable can be extended shelf life as long as possible and make this world a better place like the Eden Garden. Along the past few years, we successfully to protect and extend the shelf life of more than 2.2 million tons of fresh produce with our technology. We also successfully to increase number of the buying customer about 12.6x, 60 times of the value of the produce that we save and 12 countries that those protected fresh produce be exported to. And more than 80 organizations already validate and apply our solution on their supply chain line. So the problem that we focus is the food loss that occur along the distribution supply chain. Even you are in the upstream or downstream, you are the local distributor or you are the exporter, you found the same problem. And from our statistic, we found out that up to 50% of every transaction they trade, they have to lose along the supply chain, and it dominates them around 1.2 billion US dollar per year, and it also limits them to distribute their product to the longer destination and expand their market coverage. We propose the solution to solve this big problem. Our chemical-free edible coating solution with Thai FDA approved by just simply spraying or dipping on the surface of fresh produce, it will create the invisible film that can regulate the inflow and outflow of gases and water, and the results, as you see on the screen. Any fruit, vegetable, and industrial produce can be extended shelf life up to 5 times longer. It can also delay the microbiome occurring and maintaining the nutrition and quality of fresh produce. So when compared to the competitor in the market today, we are not only superior in terms of the capability, but we are more easy to use with more safety from Thai FDA certification, and more 3 countries in Southeast Asia are on the pipeline to be certified. As today, we have 4 strategic segments as exported fresh fruit and vegetable for the international trading, fresh cut fruit and vegetable as a supplier that supply to the hypermarket and supermarket, dry fruit and vegetable, and last one is the supply for the food factory as the cassava. So as a result, our customer can gain up to 12.9x in return when compared to the investment that they have to invest in our solution in the export scenario. And even in domestic case, they still gain about 7.2x in return. For the next step, we aim to expand to the regional by leverage our IP licensing model to the selected B2B partner, and also expand to the consumer market. And we cannot do only this strategy if we don't have the strong IP strategy. We already successfully to gain the global IP in both patent and trademark. So why should we care and bring this to the table as today? Let's see the world situation. Within 2050, 1 billion people will be in the hunger condition, and in the other hand, 1.3 billion tons of the food end up in bin every day. And to fight with this problem, we try and we deforest the forest to grow more fresh produce. And as a result, we still have 32.5 million tons of the carbon occur from the food waste. So let's change the situation by using the Eden solution and make this world to be a better place. So please feel free to contact us via this email, or if you want to explore our technology, please visit our website, or if you want to try the coated fresh produce from our partner, please feel free to order directly from the banner that we provide on the website. So let's make this world to be a better place by Eden Solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Kun Norapat. And this concludes our Food and AgTech session for today. If you wish to be connected to any of the startups, you can select and tick the startups on the polling sheet and drop it on the box at the table in front of this room when you leave this room. And for our online attendees, I believe you had already choose and indicate your interest on the Zoom screen that popped up. However, if you couldn't do it on time, feel free to send us an email request for an introduction right after this event ends. Before we end, I would like to invite all to our upcoming event of the Ultimate Global Food and AgTech Showcase, which will be happening on early September in Bangkok, Thailand. This invited-only event will be showcasing the food and AgTech innovations that can catalyzing the change in the entire food and agricultural value chain. The companies are selected on the following months of research by our ventures team and in collaboration with our corporate partners. So join us to gain a line of sight of the food and AgTech innovations and technology and resources at our upcoming event. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of our panelists and speakers that were on stage earlier for your insightful sharing and discussions. Thank you everyone for your participation and support. Once again, if you would like to know more about our program, please reach out to Sean DePana, our Executive Corporate Innovation and Head of Corporate Innovation in the Asia Pacific from Plug and Play, or myself, Per Wanvisa Wongkasit. Thank you everyone for your participation and support. With that being said, this marks the end of our program, and I would like to hand over the stage back to Wayne to officially close our summit for today.
Thank you very much, Per. Can we keep the applause running for all our speakers, all our startups, all our panelists over the last 2 days? Thank you very much, and thank you all for staying with us for 2 days, all right? That brings us to the end of our 2 days for our 7th APAC Summit. If you're looking out for the next one, it should happen sometime in November, so keep a lookout for that. One more thing, if you're joining us for our networking, please bring along your name tags. It's going to start at 6:30 p.m. at Raffles Place. We do have drinks and food there for you. And again, if you are looking to reach out to find out more about us, please reach out to any of the Plug and Play folks wearing the light blue color tags. If you want to talk to the startups, you want to be connected with any of the corporate attendees that have attended over the last 2 days, let us know. And also do drop off your polling sheet at the registration counter before you leave. All right? That's it from me. Over and out. Thank you very much for joining us.